I just let you know who all these good folks are. I'm sure most of you know already. My name is Jim Williams. I'm back in Summit County after 11 and a half years away. I got back this last May, and I'm loving it. Front desk at One Ski Hill Place and Crystal Peak Lodge, but also part-time at KKBM 104.7 The Mile from Edwards. And please, if you haven't heard of us before, listen to some of our classic music. It's pretty outstanding. And we will show over there on Sunday nights as well. We do want to thank once again our sponsors for tonight's forum, the Summit Association of Realtors, the Summit County Builders Association. Oh, and you can blame Marilyn Hogan for me, by the way, because she hired me twice at Crystal Lake. Also the Summit Daily News and the Breckenridge Restaurant Association has provided all our good eats before everything got underway tonight. And if there's stuff left out there, go grab it. I'm sure these candidates won't mind. Right?
Nope.
I'm needing.
Okay, very good.
Took my share.
All right. So we do have the same type of format that we have for the Blue River Forum. If you were here a little bit ago, we're going to be giving each candidate 2 minutes to answer each of our questions, and there are only a few of them, but there are a lot more candidates. So we'll try to keep things moving along, and we will throw a couple oddball lightning things at you at various times. So we can welcome, ladies and gentlemen, each of our candidates. First, running for mayor. Unfortunately, Brian Chiarizo, yeah, I knew I screwed up already. Chiarizo isn't able to be with us tonight, it appears. We do want to introduce you to you. Jennifer, I'm gonna almost screw it up. Micatamney.
You got it.
All right, Jennifer Micatamney. And your other candidate for mayor who's with us tonight, Eric Manuel. Now running for council, and you'll be electing 3 of these folks. Jeffrey Bergeron. Lee Gervin. Mike Dudek. Randy Duneman. And an incumbent, Wendy Wolf. And full disclosure, I worked with Jeffrey a bit at 850 KOA in Denver back about 21 years ago, when he was doing a ski show on Sunday morning.
Hope you will still favor me.
I do.
Okay, all right, okay.
I'm just saying to all of you, good luck.
We think we have to
Forgot
refuse you.
about that.
And I'm guessing the 7 of you won't be quite on as much the same page as the Blue River folks, but that's why we have these things, so the public can hear from you. So we'll start with introductions. You can explain who you are and your favorite thing about Breckenridge as we ask the Blue River candidates. So let's start with those running for mayor. First off, Jennifer.
Well, I'm Jen Micatamney. I moved here in 1999 with my husband from New York City. We've had the opportunity to settle here and raise our 2 children from birth who are now in middle school and high school. I've been active in the community pretty much since I hit the ground. One of my first big efforts was a capital campaign to build the new Little Red, where I raised $1.1 million along with the rest of the board there, and opened that preschool to a waiting list of 100 kids with a full building. From there, I moved on to council, where I served for 2 terms. I was elected mayor pro tem by my peers, and one of the things people don't realize is I worked really hard during the recession. One of the things we did as a council was the Great Reset, where we were able to cut over $2 million from our budget and not lay anyone off. I think that that's the kind of fiscal responsibility and leadership that we need in our community. One of my favorite things about Breckenridge is, frankly, the community. About 2 years after we moved here, a really good friend of ours had a son who had a brain tumor. And he was in construction, and his wife had a job at the resort. And within a week, coming together with a bunch of friends, we were able to raise over $20,000 for this family. And when I saw the outpouring of people from all walks of life in our community looking to take care of each other, I knew that this was a place that I wanted to be and raise my children. In 2014, I was term limited on council. But I've kept myself busy and active in the community. I was the co-chair for the Pro Challenge for the last 2 years, and I was also the chair of the grand opening for the Breckenridge Grand Vacations Community Center, which is something I'm also really proud of for my time on council.
All right. And an opening statement, and they have 2 minutes for each of these, by the way, and Jennifer only went about a minute and a half. Eric?
My name's Eric Manula. I moved to town for a month in 1986. It's been a long, awesome month. In 1989, I opened downstairs at Eric's, where I still work 5 days a week at least. In 1994, I was elected to my first position in the community on the Breckenridge, or at the time, the Breckenridge Sanitation District. I've been on the Red, White, and Blue Fire Board, the Breckenridge Board of Adjustments, the very first Breckenridge Open Space Advisory Committee. I've served about 12 years at different times on the Planning Commission, and I did 8 years on Town Council. What do I love about Breckenridge? This is my home. I mean, that's really, to say anything, this is where I live. This is where we're raising a son. I have a 10-year-old. He's going to middle school next year. My wife and I love it here. We have a home, we have a business, we have a dog. I wouldn't go anywhere else. And it's important to me that town continues in the way it's been for years now. So, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, Eric. And to introduce each of our council candidates, beginning alphabetically with Jeffrey.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thanks for showing up. I think it's a reflection of just the people in the crowd, how many people. That's why Breckenridge is a community and not a resort. My name's Jeffrey Bergeron. I came here in 1975 when there was unlimited parking and 12 single women. I called my mom when I got here and from South Boston, and I said, this is where I was meant to be. And the first 15 years, just because of the fickle economy, I worked here in the winter and other resorts in the summer. But then the economy improved, and with that, with a bane and a boom, there was some good and some bad. I was able to live here year-round for the most part, but still I saw a direction that the community was taking that I didn't approve of at the time, or to a certain degree. So I found out pretty early on that in a town the size of Breckenridge, you can be a participant and not just a spectator. So I got involved in various committees, served on boards and whatnot. The biggest foray into the public arena was my 96, 97, I think it was, my wife and I created a ballot initiative to increase the sales tax of 0.5%, which was going to be earmarked for open space. What that did is, from then till now, thousands and thousands of acres of open space, trails, wetlands, parks, I think even parking lots. The deal is, after that, I didn't live in town. I lived in Gold Camp. So I couldn't be a part of the BOSAC committee. Eric was on the first one. I couldn't be one because I wasn't a resident. I pushed to have Gold Camp annexed. That happened, and then soon after that, I ran for town council. So served on 2 terms, and in that time I was on the BRC board, which is now the BTO. I was on the Summit Stage board. I served on the Heritage Alliance board and various boards in the committees. I took 4 years off after serving 2 terms and being term limited, and now I retired from TV and radio. I'm still writing, but I have the time and the inclination to get back involved.
Jeffrey, that's time.
All right, well, thanks. See you next time I get to talk.
And don't worry, everybody has plenty of chances to talk. Once again, alphabetically, 2 minutes for an opening statement. Mike Dudick.
I'm Mike Dudick. I moved here in 1988 and started a small publishing business. I see many former customers sitting around here in the audience. I did that for about 10 years and sold it, and took my proceeds and invested with Mike and Rob Millizer, and we started Breckenridge Grand Vacations, and the timeshare business has been good to us. A couple years ago, I did town council for 4 years, 2010 to 2014, and at the conclusion of that, we decided, I have 4 kids. 3 graduated from college, last one on Wednesday, and my 4th child is 8 years old. We decided to take him to school in Denver and for me to live part-time up here and help Rob run the business. Mike is retired in Hawaii. Help Rob run the business, and as everyone in the room knows, our life changed in October when Rob passed. And it became clear to me that I needed to be here full-time with my family to take care of this business. We have over 500 employees, and it's not just employees. That's 500 mortgages and 1,000 car payments, and God knows how many 529s. I need to make sure that we take care of that. So I'm back here jumping in as deep as I can to take care of my business and to be a participant in the community. I think that those who know and can look back and reflect on the record that I had at town council and the things that we got accomplished in the 4 years of the tremendous spending spree that I think I led the charge on at town council, that we got a lot of great things done. And I look forward to, hopefully, with your vote, being part of that again. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Michael. And our next candidate with 2 minutes for an introduction is Lee Gervin.
My name is Lee Gervin, and I'm going to start with my favorite things about Breckenridge, what I love about Breckenridge, and that is our quality of life. And that encompasses so many things. The sense of community that we enjoy here, the connection to nature, the trails and open space that we enjoy, the incredible diverse offerings of arts and culture and music, the things that a resort community of small size of ours can offer. We are so blessed to live in Breckenridge, and I feel very fortunate to have grown up here and to have made my life here. I'm someone who has long been involved in our community. My first job was with the Breckenridge Resort Association, the BRA, and one of my assignments was to build a float for a 4th of July parade, and it was a giant brassiere on a Volkswagen Beetle, and the phrase was, "Your bra supports you." So that was one of my first community involvements. The Breckenridge Resort Association. In the early 90s, I got involved, it was my first real community involvement with the Riverwalk Advisory Committee, the Blue River Restoration Committee that evolved into what we know today as the Riverwalk. And back then, it was a ditch and rock piles. And you know what it looks like today. It's an incredible amenity for our community. I've gone on to serve the Upper Blue Planning Commission. I co-created the joint Upper Blue Master Plan. If you were here for the Blue River conversation, there was a bit of talk about that, but that's really created a lot of the community that we have today. I've served on Breckenridge Planning Commission, and I have a lot of background in planning, but I've also been involved in our nonprofit community. I'm involved with Colorado Mountain College. I've been volunteering for the Breckenridge Creative Arts. So there's a lot of things that I've been involved in my time in Breckenridge that I want to keep working on to bring to our community and keep working for our community.
All right, thanks, Lee. That's time. Our next candidate with 2 minutes for an opening, Randy Damon.
Thank you. Good evening. Like Lee, the good stuff, my favorite thing about Breckenridge is the 4 seasons that we get. They're just so unique. You can go from mountain biking all the way, jump into skiing and use our wonderful trail system, and then all of a sudden spring mud season, we don't even have a mud season anymore. So anyway, that's a few of my favorite things about the Breckenridge. All the fishing in the Blue River, skiing, bicycling. That's why I'm here, raising a family. I grew up here. Mom, when did we move here? Do you remember? 1971. So I grew up in Breckenridge. I've seen so many changes that it's unbelievable where our town is from then to now. Rock piles, I remember, Lee, right? All dredge rock. And now we have a beautiful little town on top of it, and I'd like to try and preserve it.
All right, thank you, sir. I skied Breckenridge for the first time in 71.
Nice.
But I was 12. And our final opening statement, 2 minutes, Wendy Wolf.
All the way to the W. I first want to thank everyone for coming tonight as well. To see this many faces here in Breckenridge just goes to show why you have candidates who are qualified to run for this position, because we want to be able to serve a great community like you. So thank you for being here. Jack and I moved here 20 years ago, 1995. We both decided to leave corporate jobs to have the chance to live in a wonderful town. Jack said to me, and we were still just only middle-aged at that time, in the middle of our careers, but he said quality of life, and that spoke volumes to us, and so we saw that Breckenridge had that, and we came here and we adopted a son. He was 2 days old when we adopted him, and now he's 6'2", 200 pounds, and 16 years old. and I'm in the city market a lot. So, but life has been great for us here, and Breckenridge is all we had hoped it would be. I started to wear many hats after that time. I jumped in and got involved in a lot of boards. I served on early childhood options, served on Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, and then eventually became the president of that organization. Also served on the Summit Medical Center Health Foundation board, and then the Summit Foundation, and as well as then moving into some other boards with my term on council, the Breckenridge Tourism Office, the county's Zero Waste Task Force Committee, parking task forces, and more. But I've loved my community service. I've loved really not only being able to serve you on council for the last 4 years. That term started in 2012 for me. I'm known as a very hardworking person who digs in. I'm kind of always there. Go to the committee meetings. I volunteer for the task forces, and I enjoy that very much.
And that's time, Wendy.
Okay, and I'm done.
Thank you so much. And folks, you've got a great group of candidates here, many of them familiar faces, as you can tell. And so we're going to do our first question for 5 of you, and then 2 of you. Okay? So we'll go down the list just as I have it here, in no particular order. Wendy, we'll start with you. This one, for the folks who have served on council before, or in Wendy's case are now. The question is, why are you running for mayor or council again? What are your priorities that want to make you run again as well? And so Wendy,
Yeah.
you can pick that up 2
Okay,
minutes.
thank you. Well, first and foremost, to keep Breckenridge. And if any of you have had a chance to visit my website, I say that right on the front page, and I mean it. And you know, we moved here for the authentic, historic town that we saw Breckenridge in 1995. It's still that authentic, historic town. It has character. It has one other thing that's incredibly important, and that is our locals. Our locals are a part of what makes us authentic. And we can't lose that. And with our growth, it isn't easy. We have to manage, we have to manage our growth. We have to manage and do better at our marketing. Our marketing has to be strategic. We've really made a lot of improvements, but we really have to get ever better at how we market this town so that we don't put more people here or try to get more people here in our heaviest times, but we do things to fill in our need periods so that our workforce can be in their jobs year-round, and our employers can keep their retail shops and the restaurants open long enough that they can keep our workforce here. So it feeds on each other, and it's really important for the balance of our community. So, you know, the reason I want to continue to be on council is to help take further the things that we started in the first 4 years. I've been on a very active council, and I'm proud to have been on a very active council. And there's a lot to continue with. Parking and transit, there's a lot more work to be done. We have some funding secured, but we don't know what that bundle of solutions will be yet. I think the next 4 years, we will seek and we will find those solutions and we'll implement them. And I'd like to be a part of all of that. Housing, workforce housing, as I said, all goes hand in hand. Having quality, affordable childcare enables families to stay here. If we didn't have housing, I mean, it benefits all of us. If we didn't have our workforce living here, there's a statistic out there that says 100,000 commuter miles each week are saved by our current amount of workforce housing. If we didn't have that, we'd have our problem of parking and congestion would be that much worse. So it all works together, and the balance is so incredibly important. And I want to be a part of seeking more solutions. I'm always here. I always work hard on these things, and I will continue to do that in the next 4 years.
Thank you, Wendy, and that's time. And since I let it run a little bit over, we have each of you 2.5 on this one. And next, Jennifer.
Me, Jennifer?
You do.
Oh, okay. I thought we were doing 2 and 2. All right, fine. The reason I'm running for mayor is that I believe we are at a pivotal time in our history in terms of our town. We really need to move forward balancing the needs of our infrastructure and the development of that infrastructure with keeping the town the amazing and wonderful place we all lived here and wanted to work all winter so we could stay for the summer, right? I believe that I'm running for mayor because it's a very important role. The mayor sets the tone for the council. And I believe that our town deserves a mayor that is transparent, that is engaged in all facets of our community, and builds collaborative solutions and then moves that forward to resolution. As Wendy referred to, you know, my last 4 years of council, same thing. We got so much done. I mean, we were able to come to a conclusion and move things forward with the community center and the library and create that partnership. We were able to finish that Valley Brook project. We were able to accelerate the arts district. We were able to begin the movements to create Breckenridge and enrich our art community that much more. If I had had the opportunity, quite frankly, in 2014, I would have run then. I absolutely love serving this community. I love being part of it, supporting our nonprofits, participating in town events. You know, it wasn't a month off of council and I called Vanessa and I said, just so you know, I'll be there at 8:30 in the morning for town cleanup to check people in. That's who I am, that's what I do. My first priority, or my priorities while I'm here on council, is, you know, very similar to Wendy and I know to Eric as well. It's to preserve the community and make sure that we balance our popularity and that we're strategic about our marketing, so we're really drilling in. And honestly, for me, I'd like to make sure that we have a break here or there across the year. So we have that time to have that breathing room and we can all enjoy the town that we have loved, especially since we have to hide in our houses sometimes in March. You know, I think that if you go and look at my website, jenformayor.com, you can see the extensive community service that I do, not only for Breckenridge, but throughout the community here of Summit County. So I hope that that gives you a better understanding about why I'd like to be your next mayor.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Eric, same question.
Yeah. You know, it's not the same town it was when I moved here, and it's not even the same town as it was 4 years ago when I got off council. You know, we went through a terrible recession. I think the councils have done a great job of guiding the community, but we've hit a tipping point, whether it's the amount of people that live in the community all of a sudden or the amount of people that live in Denver that find us to be the attractive choice. And there are a lot of things that all of a sudden have really sort of hit their zenith. Parking and transit, our affordable housing issues and childcare. And, you know, everybody talks about the same stuff. So I think we're all sort of push the same agendas that all the wonderful councils before us have pushed. But I think with my experience, having run a restaurant in this community, I talk to I don't even know how many people I talk to in a day about town matters. I have, I think, a wealth of knowledge in a lot of the boards and commissions in the community. And, you know, part of the mayor's job, as John knows, is herding cats. And I herd cats all day long at work. That's the job of somebody that runs a restaurant with the kind of staff I have, with the kind of, you know, wonderful clients we have. I fight fires all day long. And that's what the mayor does. I think the mayor leads a council, fights the fires, doesn't have a voice greater than anybody on the councils, but somebody has to set the tone, you know, sort of extinguish those little blazes and keep everybody on track. And we've had just, this town has been so incredibly lucky to have the councils it's had and the mayors it's had, at least since I've been here, since Steve was mayor. I think the community is really lucky to have the kind of people that are sitting up here today. It just shows the wealth, and I want to be part of that. I love serving on council. I love serving on planning commission, which you don't hear very many people say, honestly. I love it. I love the sausage making of government. It's great at this level. It's not the BS that we see on TV with the national politics. Local politics is great. You can find me anytime at the restaurant and either yell at me or tell me we're doing a great job or whatever. And it happens all the time. I'm available. And I think I have leadership qualities to really push the council through this next phase that honestly I think will be a difficult one. But I think I'm up to the challenge. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric. So we've heard Wendy wants to stay on council while Jennifer and Eric want to be ascend to mayor. And now, Mike, what do you want to return to council?
Thanks for a lot of different reasons, but I'll try and keep it really clear. First of all, I think we're all going to agree on affordable housing and parking and transit. What I'm going to bring to the table is 1 of 7 votes is the proven leadership to get that done. What I do for a living every day, I buy land and I design buildings and I figure out how to finance it. More importantly, we have a study that says we need, I don't know, around 1,300 more bedrooms. Well, how the heck are we going to pay for that as a community? I'm someone who every single day understands the financial components that get those things done and to plan it. And so I think that in collaboration with the balance of the community to figure out exactly what we want from units types to where we want them to how we actually get it built, I'm one person that can be a champion and provide leadership to make that happen. As Eric was talking, it reminded me of the first budget meeting I went to, and if you didn't really pay attention to the budget of the town of Breckenridge, you'd think that we spend like $60 or $70 million a year because there's all these transfers between these different funds. And it took me, and I'm a spreadsheet numbers guy, it took me about 1.5 years to actually figure out how this budget really works. And we spend about $22 million a year. And once I figured that out, we were able to translate that into building the Breckenridge Grand Vacations, well, it was the community center, and then because it was my idea, I got hoodwinked into it, not hoodwinked, but I got browbeat into putting the money into naming it the BGVCC and South Park and blah, blah, blah. But provide the leadership there in the Arts District and the leadership to get Prospector Park built on North Main Street with the collaborative use of sales tax dollars and open space funds. And so I think that my track record of providing the business leadership in this town, I did it publicly when I served for 4 years, and I do it privately every single day. We're the largest employer, full year-round employer in Breckenridge. I get numbers, I get how to get things done, and that's what I will bring, I think, uniquely to as 1 of 7 votes, not, you don't need 7 guys like me, but 1 of 7, that I will bring that level of leadership to the town council in the future.
All right, thank you, Michael. And Jeffrey, why would you like to rejoin council?
Well, first of all, I think it's, if you can, you should. And like Michael alluded to, a board, a council needs diversity, needs economic diversity, philosophical diversity, sexual diversity, I mean, like women. And you know, I wouldn't want 7 people like me on the board. Hell, the punctuation and spelling would kill us. But I think 1 person like me is good to have, or maybe 2. But and you know, I'm having a mental block now. But that guy from Virgin Airlines, he's kind of a albino British guy.
Richard Branson.
Yeah. Okay. Albino British guy too. What he said is the customer doesn't come first. In his business, the employee comes first. Because if the employee is satisfied, is vested, then the customer will receive a good product. And there's a lot of hardships in living in a resort. I mean, we all know that. Jennifer alluded to hiding out in May. There's a lot of hardships, but there's a lot of benefits via the tax dollars. And that's why I think sometimes the town errs on the side of improving the quality of life of those that live here, i.e. the rec center, the golf course, affordable housing, BOSAC trails, and childcare. When I started on council, there was a waiting list of 150 kids, families for childcare. That's no longer the case. So I think the town is giving back to the locals. The locals give back to the visitors, and that's why we're so crowded. But now is a pivotal time. We have these parking issues, we have transportation issues, and I think we have to balance the needs of the community with the needs and the wants of the economy, as well as the visitors that come here. And there again, I think my selling point is certainly not my savoir-faire, and God knows not my spelling, and sometimes I'm a little rough around the edges. But I do work well with people. I never hold a grudge when I lose, and I never gloat when I win. And a lot of times I'll be in a situation where I'm dead ass sure that my position's right and I'm losing, and I say, well, okay, what can I get out of it to support my issue, opposed to drawing a line in the sand. And I think cooperation is my strong suit, and hopefully you'll feel the same way.
All right, thanks to the 5 veterans. Now, you 2 newbies. Similar question, though. Why are you running, and what do you bring to the table that these returning candidates don't? Lee?
I'm running for a number of reasons. First of all, I've been encouraged to run, and most importantly by this body that sits up here, the town council, encouraged me to run when I came in for my interview for the liquor licensing authority. All 6 of the people who were sitting here and the 7th one signed my petition. So that's really hard pressure to turn down. Most importantly, I'm running because I want to bring my 20+ years of planning experience in this community to the conversations that we need to have about our transit, transportation, parking, congestion. We have a new source of funding that's going to be coming online in 17, and this is an historic moment for Breckenridge. I really believe this is yet another turning point, much like the joint Upper Blue Master Plan, where we need to bring people with planning experience to this council, and that's my unique offering. None of the other candidates have the breadth and depth of planning experience that I have, and no one currently on council has that. And you have to remember that planning comes first, development follows. I also have a lot of experience with water, and water is going to be increasingly critical in our community. We will face droughts, and we're going to need to learn how to manage that. Through my work with Continental Divide Land Trust, I worked a lot with water issues. And as a planning commissioner for Summit County, we had a lot of education. Water was always a decision of criteria of decision. My priorities would be transit, parking, transportation, congestion, pedestrian access is very important to me. I walk a lot. Housing, and then long-range planning. I think we need to dive into long-range planning again. The transit plan is going to trigger that, and I have a lot of experience with long-range planning as well. So I feel that I bring a very unique set of experiences and perspectives to the council that makes me a very qualified candidate.
All right, and Randy?
I love this town so much. I have deepest passion for it, and I just want to do things right as we move into 2020, and there is going to be a lot going on with this 4-year term. I mean, this is huge. I mean, there's going to be a lot of money to spend, like Mike's saying, and I just want to do everything right. What I think I bring to the table is, I have clear and decisive decisions. I'm a decision maker. I have a construction background with a ski resort, especially in the summertime, where I was a big part of the Peak Six, ahead of the logging operations, the stormwater management plans, and the Monte Cristo project that we did last summer. So I kind of have that background, just so you guys know.
All right, very good. Thank you. And so, all our candidates have answered that first question. Now you know why they're running. I do want to remind everybody that we're not going to delve too much in depth into one of the stickiest wickets in the town and the county over the years, and that is parking tonight. Whole separate forum on Wednesday, just about that. So you can dig into that in depth that evening. But we do have a couple more things to run by these candidates, and we'll have a couple lightning things at one point or another as well. You never know when. But let's go to the top of our order with the mayoral candidates once again to begin this question. You remember, we are sponsored by the Builders Association and the Realtors tonight. Wildfire, an important concern in the area. How does each of you view the balance between defensible space and aesthetic values in Breckenridge? Jennifer, we'll begin with you.
Honestly, I don't really see this as a balance issue. We currently have a voluntary defensible space ordinance on the books where you work with the fire department to go and they will come out, issue a permit, and explain to you what you need to do on your property in order to make it defensible against fire. I had the opportunity to go out with Matt Benedict on a few occasions when we were working on this ordinance back in the day, and I really didn't see a time or place where the neighbors that we worked with had to give up the aesthetics of their property. honestly, I think many of them found that they were able to open up some of their view corridors that our previous ridgeline development policy really made sure that houses were hidden. But with the advent of the mountain pine beetle, we do need to adapt as a community. And I think this was a rational and smart way to do it. And, you know, now from talking to people out in the community, we hadn't done this as a community, your insurance company was gonna do it anyway. I think it's really important that as we do that, people were allowed to keep their specimen trees, they got to have their wildflowers, cut them down in the springtime, and most importantly, preserve their property in the event of a fire, right? We also made sure, by doing defensible space, we make sure that our firefighters are gonna have a better shot of saving that structure and not put their life and limb at risk. You know, fire is really important, and it's something that we as a community need to pay attention to. And some of the actions that we took the last 2 years I was on council was to go through all of our reserves, look at all the funds that we had, and make sure that we had money for a rainy day. And one of the actions I think that we took that was so important was we actually put aside 9 months of reserves so that in the event of a catastrophic wildfire, which is one of the realistic things that could happen in our community, that we would have the funds set aside to keep the services going in our community for up to 9 months. That means all the things, lock, stock, and barrel, that we have here today, we would be able to continue that for 9 months. So I think that those are the kind of things as a governing body that we need to be pragmatic and observant about, and we need to really shepherd the taxpayers' money to make sure that we will continue to thrive as a community.
Thanks, Jennifer. Eric, next to you.
So this is an interesting question because there are two big lessons that I've learned through these things. When I started on planning in '98, a big part of planning used to be making people keep the trees, because that's how we kept your house from my view. So that was a big deal. We used to always talk about, you know, what you could cut down, what you could disturb, what you could get rid of so you would have a view corridor. And there were a lot of fights in this room with applicants about what trees you were allowed to cut down. Well, don't I wish I could go back to those days and say, you know what, we're gonna lose a lot of these trees anyway, so let's not, you know, waste our time or the goodwill of the community by, you know, being so rough on this. So fast forward to my second term on council, and the council decided to take legislative action to make everybody cut the trees near their house for defensible space. And a group in the community rose up and, you know, pretty much taught the lesson that I think you just can't legislate everything. You can legislate some stuff, but you can't legislate everything. And things like making people do things to their property that they should do because it's the right thing to do are the kind of things that we shouldn't legislate as a government body in Breckenridge. So I think that the outcome of the uprising is the right outcome. Now people take care of their property like they should, with the wonderful help of the Red, White, Blue Fire Department, who now not only worries about timber on your property and the trees next to your house, but they always also worry about what your structure is comprised of, where embers can get into your house. And then with the town and the county chipping policies, I think we've gotten to a great place where we continue in this path, where homeowners associations, like all the, you know, what are there, 90 HOAs in the Highlands or whatever it is, Gary, you know, you guys have done a wonderful job of taking care of your own property. And that's really where that should come out. So I think this is a great question, because those are two really wonderful lessons that I learned in my political career.
All right, there are your candidates for mayor, and now to those for council. Jeff Bergeron, defensible space versus aesthetic values as regard to fire.
Yeah, that was the question. And actually, I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think defensible space can be aesthetically pleasing. And Eric alluded to it before. Well, we screwed up, well, the town screwed up these years ago when, during the developmental phase, we actually required some people to plant trees. Not only did we require them to leave trees, but if you plant a tree, if you plant a buffer, you know, we'll give you X amount of points, yada, yada, yada. And then 5-10 years later, we said you might need to cut down those trees. And you know what, I understand that, because the science changed. It was a fluid situation. The pine beetle scourge occurred. We're gonna lose 90% of our trees. Wildfire became a real serious issue. I talked to Jay Nelson last week about it, and so what Eric said, we tried to legislate it, citizens decided they didn't want it, did a ballot petition, we acquiesced and said no, made it a volunteer program. I talked to Jay Nelson, I think he's assistant chief, and he said he's pretty happy with the compliance and that people are doing the right thing for the right reason. Of course, the right reason is they don't want their homes to burn down. More importantly, I think the bigger question is how we do it on our open space. And the Ophir Mountain deal up in Frisco, that was a huge clear cut. A lot of the public didn't agree with that. A lot of town meetings and letters to editors and whatnot. And they talked to the Forest Service, and I think so. I think in the future, not only will the red, white, and blue work with our homeowners, so they'll comply, which homeowners are very more likely to comply when there's a huge fire someplace else. But also we did work with the Forest Service and make sure that we're doing strategic clear cutting so that down the road, because that's what they need. They need kind of a checkerboard deal to slow the course of the fire before it approaches a residential area. So yeah, I think we're on the right path, and knock on wood, we won't be this won't be something that'd be an issue for us.
All right, so question to you, Mike.
Yeah, I got a kind of a fun anecdote. I live in a cul-de-sac next to Wendy, and Tim Casey and Rich and Marianne Rowley, and I was on the council subsequent to the fight about voluntary versus involuntary, and it turns into voluntary. And so Jack and Tim and Rich, well, I think one day when we were having a council meeting, they had the fire department come up and take a look at the neighborhood, and I get a knock on the door from the neighbors that say, hey Mike, everything in the neighborhood's fine except for your roof. And we don't want your roof taking our houses down. And so that was the voluntary way that I got to put a new roof on my house.
No more shake shingle?
They do now. It was wood, and it was not good. So, but I'm glad I did that. I learned, I didn't need to be forced to do it. But then I also think, and I don't know what the statistics are today, but I know that the compliance level from a voluntary standpoint isn't quite what I think as a community we would hope it would be. And so I really think that there needs to be more of an effort for educational outreach so that more people get the knock on the door, hey Mike, you need to fix your roof. And I can see the chief shaking his head right there too. So, and then I got the other side of it from a professional level. I am building buildings that must comply from a fire safety standpoint. So I see both sides of it. But I really think that the key thing as a community, like Eric said, is a voluntary deal, but it has to go to the next level. Where we as a community and we as a future council need to commit more resources financially to better education, to get more people, to make sure that there's more voluntary compliance with defensible space.
All right, Mike, thank you. And Lee.
Well, I think the answer is really in the question. It's a matter of balance, and I think that the voluntary compliance has done a good job of helping create balance. People love their trees, and I think part of the education needs to be that yes, you can keep your specimen trees near your house. It becomes part of the footprint of your house that you then protect with more defensible space as you get farther from your house. You don't have to clear cut your property. You need to have crown separation. So I think that we're on the right path of creating that balance of the aesthetics of the beauty that trees provide us. People want to have trees around their home. You're not going to have birds to your bird feeder if you don't have trees. That kind of balance versus the very real concern of wildfire in our community.
All right, thanks, Lee. Randy.
I think we all agree. I think it is that balance, and I think that the Summit County Wildfire Council is doing a great job through the valley of clear cutting the forest. I mean, the rejuvenation that we're going to see in 20, 30 years is going to be outstanding from those clear cuts. I mean, it's ugly now, and I think I agree with Mike that we need to educate maybe HOAs that there's grant money available for, the defensible, space, and that the defensible space will continue to grow through that, council, and it'll be okay over the years.
All right, very good. Wendy, you get to tell us your thoughts on the balance between aesthetic value and defensible space.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what has been said here, so I won't repeat it, but I have to say it was really hard to start cutting down trees, healthy, large lodgepole trees that we had already spent hundreds of dollars trying to save during the pine beetle infestation. Some of the trees that came down in our neighborhood had those packs on them that had saved them, and now they're lying. So we spent another $100 to cut it down. So, that was hard. But the result of it was quite amazing. I'm a total convert, because once more sunlight started to filter through what had become very dense in certainly our neighborhood, and I know now when I drive through town, and I still go into a few neighborhoods where those trees are still dense, that really stands out to me. I now am more attracted to the sunlight filtering through and some aspens coming up, and a little diversity in our forests, even right around our homes. And so I think we've learned a lesson from that. But moreover than all of that is that a year or so ago, the Red, White, and Blue came and presented a video to us about what had actually happened in the Black Forest fire of a couple of years ago between those who had done defensible space and those who had not. And it was right there on video to see. It's the most profound thing I have ever seen in terms of convincing someone that defensible space works. The houses that still had trees very close to their homes soon had an ember that flew sometimes miles, and not the whole Black Forest all burned programmatically. There were spot fires, and sometimes those embers came and landed on somebody's deck, surrounded by trees, and the whole thing went up in flames. Houses around them, however, who had done defensible space, were saved. And so the results were dramatic. And if that ever happens to us, and as the Red, White, and Blue explained to us, that that community actually in many ways would perform just like we would in the same kind of a scenario. So if that's not enough to convince you to go out, and I think I left that meeting and went back and cleared some more brush. The chipper's coming through. But it really works. It's important.
Very nice. How about for some nice answers so far, ladies and gentlemen? All right, from the beginning. Here's the first of our curveballs. A little lightning zinger for you. Only one or two words on the topic. I think this one could use a lot more depth, but we're going to try and get you to keep it short. This lightning topic will be, what do you think of moving away from a seasonal community to a year-round community? Randy.
I like it.
Okay, Wendy.
Need strategy.
Jen.
Requires housing.
Eric.
Already happening.
Mike.
It's already happening. We need to manage it better.
Jeffrey.
I like seasonal.
Okay.
3 words, sorry.
Emily.
Inevitable.
All right. What do you think, everybody? Quick, concise? You're supposed to be good, right? All right. Okay. So, candidates, our next good question you can expound on for 2.5 minutes each. What's your position on workforce housing? It kind of goes with that, I know. What's your position on workforce housing in terms of availability for both rentals and single-family homes? All right, let's go down the line the opposite way in which we just did. Start with Lee.
Housing has long been on my radar. I started on planning commission for the county in '92, and that it was an issue then. I was the first administrator for the Summit County Housing Authority. I helped that organization get started and hire their first executive director. So this is an issue that I've been paying attention to for a very long time. And there were a number of really good ideas that came out of the housing summit that I attended last month. Housing is going to be addressed through a series of 1, 2, 5% solutions. There isn't one fits all solution. The town and the county have been doing a good job of addressing what has been identified as our need right now, which is rental housing. And as you all know, there's quite a bit of rental housing coming online starting this summer, starting next summer, and 2 projects are going to break ground this summer. The current need is for rental housing. Once those folks get in here, like Eric came for a month and he's still here, those folks are going to want to become homeowners. So we know that our real estate cycle is cyclical, everything is cyclical. So maybe our need right now is for rental. Our next need, when those folks who have been in those wonderful units, then now they're going to want to become homeowners. So I believe our next cycle that we're going to need to start figuring out is homeownership. I live in the Wellington neighborhood now, been there for 1.5 years. And I'm very grateful to have an affordable home. I have a garage. I've never parked my car in a garage before. It is thrilling. We need to be careful to not overbuild our rental housing stock because, as we know, it is cyclical and our economy is cyclical. Maybe the inevitability of becoming year-round, as I said, is true. I believe it's going to take us a while yet to get there. So as I said, good ideas have come out of the Housing Summit. I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't have time right now, but I do have some specific ideas for addressing housing, keeping our current workforce housing as workforce housing, keeping folks who live in town. It creates vitality, animation. They're not driving, they're not contributing to the parking. I lived on Harris Street for 14 years before I moved to the Wellington neighborhood. I walked everywhere. And there's a lot of workforce housing in the core of town, and I'd like to see some programs to preserve those as well. So there's a lot of things we can do, and we need to do a lot of things.
Thanks, Lee. That's time. Jeffrey?
Oh, yeah, all for it, all for workforce housing. I think workforce housing does a lot for us. In my last few years on council, we kind of made this switch and made a move in the direction of less for sale ownership and more rental. But when you think about housing, it transcends not just a place for people to live. It improves the quality of our workforce. It makes it a better experience for our guests. Improves our economy. Less sustainability as far as less driving. But we have to have that with transportation. In other words, a workforce housing, a rental unit, building something out on Airport Road, what we have to do is make sure that they have a way to get to work without necessarily taking their car. I think the private sector has stepped up in, like, say, the Wellington, Vista Point, as far as for ownership type housing. And I think the town, Valley Brook was a good way to go, same thing with Gibson Heights. But I also think that the town can step up with rental housing. And I think that's how people get a foothold into the community. And like Lee alluded to, it provides a year-round, during the mud season, a year-round, hopefully revenue for the businesses. So yeah, I think all of us up here are for it. It's a matter of where it's gonna be, how we're gonna pay for it, and who we could partner up with. I think there's some major players in the community that if we reach out, perhaps they will partner up with us. And also, I think there's grant money available as well.
All right. Mike?
Yeah, I think that this is a situation where it's not an if question, like Lee and Jeffrey said, it's a how question, and it's a what question. The how question is, in my mind, is that when we have a study that says 650 additional units or 1,300 more bedrooms, how is that comprised? Because there are AMI levels out there. What number of bedrooms do we need that are 50% and below? What number do we need that are between 50 and 75% or 75 and more? And that answer, through more study, is going to tell you how much money publicly we have to put into housing, because all of the housing that's below 50% AMI, whether it's rental or ownership, is going to come 100% from tax dollars. When you start getting into higher AMIs, that's when there's a combination between private and public equity working together. And when you get to the highest levels of the AMI, at 100 or 120, that's when you get access to like the $30 million that Vail Resorts wants to dole out between their 7 mountain communities. They're not doing that for free, guys. They want to return their money. And so we need to know as a community, how many units do we need in that 100+ range so that we can go to Vail with deals so we can get some of their equity to help build stuff. And that can also help us understand as a community how much money we're going to have to put into rental housing to make sure that we meet all segments of the marketplace, so we maintain the community fabric. And so this is a lifestyle question, but the answer is math. And you got to be able to figure out what the deal is, and you need to understand the numbers that are involved in order to, everyone's going to say yes to housing, I think, but how are we going to get there? That's the question you have to ask yourself, is how are you going to get the business deals done to build the right mix of rental and ownership and at the right different AMI levels, and how are we going to pay for it? It's one thing to say yes to do it, it's another thing to get it done. And that's what I'm going to bring.
Thanks, Mike. And like everything, it's a tricky balance. Eric?
Show me a community, a resort community like this that has the property values it has, where the people that work in that community don't live there, and I'll show you a pretty crappy community. The strength of our community is that, years ago, we started to assist private development build attainable housing for the workforce. And it's been a wonderful experience, I think, for all of us, that the Wellington in particular, I sat on Planning Commission through some, again, I don't know why Planning Commission always has these terrible fights, but the Wellington was a series of terrible fights that turned out to be just a jewel for the community. And I don't think there's anybody probably in the room that really thinks that we shouldn't be building housing. It's sort of like Mike says, how are we going to do it? Where's the money going to come from? And I think maybe the one thing that I believe that maybe some of my colleagues don't is, I don't think this is something that the town should be doing. I don't think the town should act as a general contractor or a builder. The town should provide treasure in order to make these things happen, be it land or assistance with sewer taps or free water taps or inspection or money. But I don't like when the town gets involved with development. I think that's best left to the Wellingtons and all the other people that have come through the community. So I of course strongly believe in all the facets that we need, from the 130 AMI down to the rental for the 3-month rental, and we'll be excited to be in on those conversations. But I don't think we should be the builder. We should be the provider that helps the builder do it, so that you take the risk, so that we don't get back into a situation like we did during the recession, where people that were building in the Wellington or were trying to sell in the Wellington were pissed that the town was building affordable housing at Valley Brook, which did seem like, there was a bit of a conflict of interest there. We're going to sell you a house and then you can't sell it, and by the way, we're also trying to build some other stuff. So I think there's a fine line there, and I think the town should stay back from that and be the ones that support the effort, drive the effort, give the treasure for a lot of the effort, but then find somebody that knows what they're doing to make that dream become reality.
All right, thank you, sir. Jennifer?
Well, I actually do believe that the town has a really strong role in housing. If we look to our vision statement over here, the number one thing is community character. Community character means all of you who are in this room, all of you who are in the Wellington neighborhood and Valley Brook and Pinewood One and all of our other great things that we've done over time. We provide a way for us regular people to live, work, and play here. Our market is broken. It would be wonderful if we could incent some of the great builders in our community to take the time to build on lots that they own or perhaps partner with the town, but it's not in their economic interest. And that's why I truly believe the town does have a role. What we did with Valley Brook, we were able to save millions of dollars and take that money and put it back into the housing fund by doing that development by ourselves. We were able to build 42 units and it cost $2 million. The subsidy in those units went strictly into the 80% AMI units, which is going to be the case because those don't pencil and no private developer is going to have the ability to do that. When you get to the higher AMIs, we do have opportunities for partnership. But, now at least as a community, we have a choice. Is this something that we can do on our own and make sure that we're putting all the money that we're putting into it, into the housing, making a great Energy Star affordable place that's affordable to live with solar panels? Because making workforce housing isn't just about building it the first time, it's about making it affordable for those people to live in it afterwards. Making HOAs where the dues are low. That means when we do have those economic swings, people will be able to stay there. Having a good housing and child care committee who can then help administer and create policy for those different developments is also really important. I spent 8 years on the Housing and Child Care Committee. I begged each mayor that I worked with every year to stay on that committee because I am so passionate about making sure that our middle class can stay here and thrive. It takes someone who is a good listener and can look at the whole situation to really understand the challenges of what it means. I worked with workforce neighborhoods. I helped manage the Wellington neighborhood with their boards for 10 years. I worked with Vista Point. I worked with Peak One neighborhood. I really understand. I worked with these people on a day-to-day basis trying to figure out how they were going to store their RVs and how they were going to pay their dues. I think the experience that I bring to being mayor of this community is one of connecting with those locals and making sure that we maintain that middle class. And if we are going to maintain our community character, these are the kind of projects that we are going to have to continue to participate in.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, Wendy, your position on workforce housing as far as availability of rentals and single family.
Well, I'm very committed to workforce housing in our community. It's very important to me to see that at least half of our workforce be able to live in our town, and as time goes by, perhaps that won't even be enough, because as more and more folks retire on the upper end and their home is no longer an affordable home, it's kind of changes the dynamics of the marketplace. But in any case, our town is a town that has our locals living here so far. And if, there's towns like Aspen where that's not so much the case. They have a huge traffic jam of locals trying to commute as much as 70 or 80 miles a day, one way, to get to work and back. And that's hard to imagine happening in our town. So it's worth trying to stay in the program. It's a challenging program to provide workforce housing, and one that I believe that we as a town will need to continue to play a role in. There was a house in the Wellington just recently, few of them are market rate homes, and it was listed for $695,000. That's not affordable to anyone in the workforce. Many of them are deed restricted, and the workforce in some cases even struggle to be able to pay for what those have become. So it's not easy. I love the debate. I love what I've even been listening to right here. I'm sure that Mike and I would have some spirited conversations. I think one thing that's important is good neighborhood building as we look and develop Block 11. The Wellington neighborhood is a great neighborhood. It feels like a great neighborhood. It's well put together. I think that's important as we look at Block 11. As we think about the Vail Resorts amount of money, one of the things that I'm very well aware of is that their needs are seasonal. Their employees mostly are here for 4 months period of time, very seasonal, 4 months. And then most of them leave to take that experience and go on and resume build and go somewhere else and don't return to our community. And so it is very much of a one-time opportunity. They move on and new folks come in the next time. So I'm not quite sure how that lives right next to those who we are trying to build a housing for that are hopefully going to become year-round residents of our community. I think that takes some real work, and so I think there's going to be considerations not only for the financial aspect of it, but the livability of it, if you will, and I think all of that's important.
Very good this time. And Randy.
I live in the Wellington neighborhood, yay, in a non-deed restricted house. It's quite the news. I support the housing, like, to the fullest extent because of where we are. And like Mike said, there was a 2013 assessment study for the needs of housing. And I think the town is being very aggressive right now in that these projects that are coming online, you know, each summer, and I think we're keeping up with the demand barely. But I did look at Pinewood 2 last week. I got to visit that with the council, and what a neat project. Really nice. Tim Casey and Eric did a nice job at that, and that's what we need. And I think the diversity of the 2-bedroom, studio, 1-bedroom, and the rental, you know, the long term is okay, but we might have to look at seasonal as we move on, you know, 2018 perhaps. But with the McKean property coming online, Block 11 before that, I would like to see that out within the next 4 years.
Okay, all right. One more lightning item before we go to the closing statements. And for this one,
Hold on to your seats.
well, it's not that bad. Maybe not just a word or two, but we could probably go with a sentence. Because it's just one word, and we'll start with a man who has national exposure on it. Mike, the topic is pot.
I think you all know where I am on that. Not on Main Street until it's mainstream America. And I with Jerry and Jack worked hard to deliver the message to the last council that, and resoundingly, the community agreed with not on Main Street till it's mainstream USA.
Okay, more than a sentence, but that's all
All
right.
right.
No problem. Eric.
That was good for me.
I'll give you 2 words: unintended consequences.
Very interesting. Jen.
I think the voters spoke loud and clear.
Okay. Wendy.
Go slow.
Jeffrey.
I'm over it.
Randy.
Not on Main Street.
Lee.
Dead issue, the voters decided, that's nothing I'm interested in expanding, pursuing, or carrying a banner on.
Okay. Very concise, everybody. Thank you so much. And we do want to remind everyone that if there's an answer you want to go back to or something tonight, the forum tonight will be rebroadcast on Channel 10, or if you want to see every pore in everyone's face and how much they're sweating or not, HD on Channel 880. SouthernCountyNews.com. Thanks, Brad, for being here and reporting the event. So it is time for our closing statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for these. You can say anything in here that we haven't covered. And remember, everybody will cover parking at a separate event on Wednesday. So let's begin again with our candidates for mayor and Jennifer.
All right, here we go. I do want to address, I don't think I answered the other question quite precisely, so I'm going to say, I also think as a community that we need to decide what we want our town to look like at the end of the day. It's up to us to master plan what mix of housing that we have. And of course, we need to address rental, seasonal, first-time ownership, move-up houses, as well as stuff for our retirees. So I just want to clarify that. I think with regards to me running for mayor, what I want to wrap up with tonight is I think if you go to my website, jenformayor.com, you'll see that I have demonstrated a commitment to the community over the last 15 years, because the first 2 years I was busy having babies. I worked with the business and the community partners to preserve and protect the interests of our community. One of the big things that people talk about all the time is Vail Resorts. I believe they have a fiduciary duty to their stockholders. I believe that we have a duty to our citizens. We are going to make decisions at times that they're not going to like and vice versa, but those are business decisions and we need to, we need to figure out where we can work together and move forward on those. I have an in-depth knowledge of a broad array of things, of issues. Whether I've spent time working on housing and childcare, I've done stuff with the environment, I worked on our bag fee, I've taken kids to Frisco to see if they can extend some of those environmental efforts further and deeper into our community. While my style is different than Eric's, I do have a proven leadership and I can make tough decisions and I can pull a group of people together and lead them in one direction with one voice. So when we make a decision as a council that we will go to the community and face you. I also believe that as a government, it is important for us to listen. Sometimes we have to listen because we don't get it right with defensible space. Or when we had our Great Reset, there were certain touch points with the community with regards to the rec center and their hours. I think it's okay to listen and to re-examine those decisions and make sure that the decisions we're making are reflective of our community.
And that's time. Jennifer McAtamney, ladies and gentlemen. Also running for mayor, Eric Manuel.
Yeah, I love this town. I love living here. I love skiing, mountain biking, raising a family. I love my job. I feel like I owe such a debt of gratitude to this community for everything that you guys have given me over the years. I've had a bunch of successful, wonderful restaurants. Fortunately, I only have one now. It makes my life a hell of a lot easier. But I can't tell you how special it feels to live in a community like this that's so supportive all the time. And everybody's supportive. You can't have a fundraiser in this town and not walk into every restaurant and get gift cards from every one of them or every retailer. It's I hate to use the word magical because that sounds odd coming out of my mouth, but it is a magical place to live. And I think that I have, good, deep experience and broad support from the community to lead a council, to keep the town, why you stayed, why I stayed, why we moved here. I agree with Jen that the scary answers to other masters, but I also think that there's no reason that, we can't get along about things and solve things. We've argued with the ski area for years, and there's no reason that we can't come to resolution on issues like we did on this last issue that John led with the tax, and coming to agreement instead of always just bad-mouthing each other. I think it's important that we have a community that loves to live here, loves each other, and really just why are you here? You're not here to bitch about the ski area all the time or bitch about housing or and even though we all do, that's not why we live here. We live here because this is an awesome place to live. And I'd love to be your mayor, but if not, you know what? So I won't. So maybe they'll let me go back on planning commission. And that's okay with me too, because this is an amazing group of candidates, and take myself out of that, but this is a wonderful group of people. Just like every council has been. I can't stress enough the councils that I've dealt with in the 30 years I've lived here, how to a man and woman, nobody has acted in their self-interest. Nobody has sat up here and done things to line their pocketbook. They do it because they love the place they live. And I'll leave you with that.
All right, Eric Manuel. Ladies and gentlemen, two of your three candidates for mayor. Brian couldn't be with us tonight. And now, for the new candidates for council, Lee Gerb.
I want to thank our hosts tonight, the Summit Association of Realtors, the Builders Association, the Restaurant Association, Summit Daily. And I want to thank our current town council and our particularly the outgoing members, Ben and Gary. Thank you for your service, and especially Mayor Warner for an amazing job that you've done leading our community all of these years. I really hope that I can sit up here with this next group that's going to lead our community. I really admired what I saw was the collegiality of our current council, and I want to continue that tradition. We've always had I've been proud of our community for engaging in civil discourse, and I think that's really important, an important part of our quality of life, and I want to carry that through. There's something about me that very few of you may know, and that in the 90s I was awarded by the Summit Association of Realtors the Citizen of the Year Award, and that was for my efforts to preserve the ZL and ZR license plates. And most of you, I recognize so many faces in this room. I know you know what I'm talking about. And I was successful. We still have, you are allowed to keep your ZL or ZL license plate today. The state was going to get rid of all of them. And so that's another, it's the little things that make our community so special and the little things that are very telling about us. Those things are important to me as well. I'm going to reiterate that I have the most experience with planning, the broadest and the deepest, from the county level to the master planning level to the site-specific level. I was on Breckenridge Planning Commission when we master planned the gondola lots. I have experience with water, which is going to be really important as we move forward in this community. And hopefully you'll come to on Wednesday, so we're going to get into more of that. I think it's really important to bring a holistic look at these issues, and I've had my finger in a lot of different pies in this community over the years. As I said before, I'm involved at CMC. I'm on the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I mentor a student there. I've been invited to be on one of the committees for Breck Creative Arts, and certainly I'm known for my environmental advocacy and 25 years of working in our nonprofit community.
And that's timely. Thank you. Lee Gerben, ladies and gentlemen. Randy Newman.
Like Eric says, you know, I love this town. That's why I'm still here. Hopefully, I'm here forever. And with all my heart, I would like to serve the citizens who elect me. Thank you.
World's shortest closing statement. Randy Newman, ladies and gentlemen. Randy, the new candidates for council. Now the veteran candidates for council, either staying or coming back. The incumbent, Wendy Wolf.
Thank you. I too want to just mention John Warner, who's been our mayor and served on council prior to that, and all the many years of service. It's been extraordinary. I've also really enjoyed serving with Ben and Gary. I also had enjoyed serving with Mike and Jen, and now they're back. So maybe the rest of you will be back at some point in time. But you know, it goes to show that we really do have some extraordinary candidates who care very much about this town. But equally, I know this community cares about the town. It's evidenced by how many of you are here tonight. And the reason I truly enjoy serving on council is because I do get to work with so many of you. And I say work because I'm known for working very hard at it and serving on committees and task forces to hear from the community. There's been many times where I thought I was going in one direction with my rationale and get out in the community and it gets tweaked or even in some cases completely changed. And that's happened a few times, and I think that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And I think that it's really important to be present, to be visible in the community, to be out there, to enjoy being with the community, to listen to folks really challenge you at times. You know, you think about that in the ensuing days, and you find out in your inner soul if there was something to that, and oftentimes there really is. So it's a real back and forth process, and we have the great luxury in this community of having community members that really care, and that's what makes this town, and I'd like to serve 4 more years. Thank you.
Wendy Wolf, ladies and gentlemen. Now the gentleman who'd like to return to council, Mike Dudick.
I'm having what Jeffrey would probably call is like a flashback sitting up here. Because what happens in the council meetings is people talk and then you say, yeah, I agree, and then you shut up. I'm not going to do that, but I agree with virtually everything that's been said up here. But that's the way it works at the council. I think that what I know for sure is I don't know what all the answers are for parking or for transit or for housing. But what I do know is that every day when I was serving Breckenridge before, and I love Breckenridge dearly, that's why my little guy's going to start 3rd grade here in the fall after he finishes 2nd grade down in Denver. I love Breck dearly. But what I do, and what I did before publicly and what I do privately is assimilate information and try and help formulate the best possible decision. And I think that I bring a unique skill set to 1 of 7 votes on town council, is to be able to distill and to titrate down financial information, I maybe in second place to Lee in terms of planning. We've planned and built a lot of things in this town. I've done that. I've lived it, I've walked it, and I can provide the leadership financially that this community needs, and then I can take from the community the desires and wants and assimilate that with the financial realities. And I think I can bring that kind of leadership and vision to the town council and help make continue to have Breckenridge be the best place in the world to live.
Mike Dudek. And our final candidate, also looking to return to council, Jeffrey Bergeron.
Hey, first of all, I would like to invite you all to a meet and greet that Michael and I are hosting at the canteen tomorrow, 4 to 6. We are going to serve hors d'oeuvres, which is French for free food. So, you know, and I hate to toot my own horn. It's tough on your neck, but like Lee, I'd like to say something that you people probably don't know about me. In high school, I get hairline most likely to recede. And so, anyway, I like everybody else, I love this town. Any other town, I'd be a waiter, let's face it. And it's been very, very good to me. It has been a privilege over the years, sitting on council and hopefully just kind of directing the ship, not piloting it, not captaining the craft, but listening to the other people and offering my input. And if I get elected, that's cool, we have a great crop. If I don't, I'll still be involved. And I think they're just affecting the community, doing the BOSAC thing, and where I could look at open space and trails and say, well, I was a part of that. Looking at some of the things that we did as a body on council, looking at the things that the last council, the current council, the councils before me have done. It is just a privilege. We're doing great, man. We get affordable housing, over 400 units. We have amazing open space. We have great childcare that we didn't have before. We've taken huge steps, and hopefully I'll be a part of the future of this council. If not, I'm going to be a part of the future anyway, because I'm not going anywhere, and I'm feeling pretty good, so I think I'm going to be around for a while. So, thanks. I hope you'll consider me, and thanks for showing up. I'm sure it wasn't for the cookies.
Jeffrey Bergeron. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our forum. Again, it'll be shown on Channel 10 and in HD on Channel 880 and at SummitCountyNews.com. Thank you for coming.